Okay, so something happened today. Um, Kind of using this like a video log in a sense. I did journal about this and we'll probably have to look back at it time and time again. But um, so I said in other videos that I am selling my house and moving to another state to be closer to family. Um, The family I'm moving to be closer to are those who are more like minded, are resonate closer to the level that I feel I'm resonating. Um, and in these times, I have been shown, on multiple occasions that this kind of thing is going to happen where we gravitate away from those who are not aligning or resonating at a level close to us. And we're just going to start to segregate ourselves, in essence, in a natural kind of way until things level out. Um, so I had in my mind an idea of how this needed to happen. First you sell your house, then you find another house to buy, then you move, right? This is how this is supposed to happen. At least in my mind, this is how it was supposed to happen. It's kind of, it may yet happen that way, but something happened today. I went out to my studio. So I don't know if I put this in a video or not. So through the whole COVID shutdown thing, I really didn't like that I was not able to go to work. I didn't like that my clients were not, a point was reached where my clients wanted to get their services provided, and I had no area to provide those services. I was not comfortable going into other people's homes to provide services because I didn't have an appropriate workspace. And, you know, I just wasn't comfortable not having the mirrors that I need, not having, I didn't like having to lug all the stuff around, whatever. So at that time, I sat in meditation and I said, what would you have me do? How can I help? What would you have me do? Um, Within a couple of days, I was impressed that I was to go out and buy a travel trailer and convert it into a mobile salon and spa. I did that. I ran into some issues because I live in a state where those things are not, uh, we haven't reached that point of progression in the state that I'm in. So I had to find some loopholes to be able to work out of this unit. I did tow this unit around. I had a Chevy Silverado truck, double cab. I towed around my 27-foot travel trailer that I converted into a salon and spa unit. Um, it had, full water, heat, hot water, etc. Okay. So I started doing that in October of 2020. February of 2021, the end of February, my gray water tank froze. Now that means the water from the shampoo bowl. So when I was shampooing hair color out, running the sink in the bathroom kind of things, that's gray water. So that tank froze. Well, most of us know what happens when things freeze and water expands, right? So I was very concerned that there would likely be a crack in my tank because they are plastic. And I didn't want to crawl underneath that thing and replace a water tank and all this stuff. Um, And at that time, I threw up my hands and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to park it. So, sorry, I got to shift my hand here. So I parked this unit at my house and had been working out of the unit with as many clients as were willing to come to me, because there was a great convenience in me just towing this unit to them. So that was, and I'd never towed anything, so that was really interesting. So it was very stressful though at the same time. So it was interesting, but it was very stressful. I didn't mind it as much in the daytime, but sometimes I'd be out until after dark, and I didn't really like towing it in the dark because I got very fond of using my side mirrors to see when I made turns, if I was taking a turn too tight or not, just for my own knowledge, because I was so new at it. But anyway, so I did that for 4 months, right? Yeah. And then the tank froze and I parked it at my house and continued to see clients from my house. We did some excavation. So there are RV hookups at my house now that have water and septic right there. And so that was really convenient. It cut back on a lot of the stuff I had to do. Today, I went out to ready the studio. I think it's still today. Um, and my hot water heater would not turn on. So that means no hot water. So I tinkered with a couple things, and you know, for about a week, this this impression, the thing had been fritzing out a little bit, and I every time, so on these hot water tanks, it's like a 6-gallon hot water tank, and in this RV, and mine was 6 gallons, I believe, and it's on demand, and that means you turn it on and it heats the water, and as new water comes in that is cold and needs heated, as you're using water, then it will kick itself on and heat the water, right? Or if it sits long enough that the water cools, it will heat to keep the water hot. So what was happening was, when it would need to kick on automatically to heat new water, it wasn't doing that. So I'd have to flip the switch off and flip it back on to get it to ignite again. And that's been happening for a week, approximately a week. And every time I'd flip this switch, I would get a reminder, hey, just want you to know the time is running out. Time is running out on this. Okay. But I knew I was trying to ignore it. Because I knew there was nothing I was supposed to do about it. It's kind of like the feeling of, if you could know the last day that you're going to be alive in your body walking this planet, do you really want to know? Okay. So every time I flip this switch, sorry, I got to switch my hand again. I would get this, oh, here's your reminder again that this thing, you're on borrowed time as far as working out of the studio. So that was pretty obvious. And I put it on, I just kept kind of pushing it to the back of my mind, because I knew I wasn't supposed to fix it. I knew I wasn't supposed to do anything about it. And there was no point in lamenting it or ruminating over it when there was nothing I was supposed to do. So I thought, I understood that I was going to get as long out of it as I was going to get. And I had no idea how long that was going to be. But I already knew that when it quit, that was my sign. So this morning, actually this afternoon, I went out and I tried to do that and tinkered with a couple things. The whole time I'm tinkering with the things, I'm going, this isn't, the jig is up. It's just time. Okay. So I didn't have a whole lot of motivation to get my house ready to be shown until September. Again, I didn't know why. In August, I went out to visit my family um, in Indiana and was told on the way home that I was going to be selling my house and moving, told by Spirit. And I went, "What? Who made that call? Like, who decided that?" So it just, I was told, "This is what you're doing," kind of chuckling, like, "This is what you're doing." And I'm like, "Okay." So, you know, um, but I didn't have the motivation to do anything. And I was kind of like, well, if I'm supposed to sell my house and move, why don't I have any motivation to, start purging? Because, I've been here for 13 years and had as many as 7 people living in this house, you know, and at one time, and we've accumulated a lot of stuff. But now it's just Alice and I, so, not so many of us now. But anyway, there was still a lot of stuff to be purged and moved and whatever. And I s- I was in awe that I wasn't motivated. I'm being, I was shown, told, however you want to say it, that I'm moving, but I have no motivation to do anything about it. So I found that really interesting, and I thought, oh well, what am I going to do about it? It's just not there, so I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to force what just isn't there. Because that's what I've been doing my whole life and it hasn't worked out so well. So I'm just going to see how this goes. So one day, I don't even remember. Oh, yes. Okay. So my son's behavior, right? I started noticing that he the more television he watched, and he'll watch a lot of it if left himself, right? The more TV he watched, the more issues I had with behavior and mouthiness and mouth is open more than ears are open kind of thing. And um so I had for a long time been impressed to turn the TV off, to just not have TV service. And, I'm really okay that way because I don't really care to watch it. But I kept it for him because he did like it, his cartoons and whatever. Um, and all of a sudden, one day I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this TV thing. I've had it. So I called up DirecTV and I said, I want you to turn this stuff off. And of course, they were very nice and tried to keep me. I said, listen, I really appreciate that. I said, but at this point, there's nothing you can tell me that's going to make me change my mind because Spirit told me to do it. That's where I'm at now. Is like once it's really, really obvious to me this is what I'm supposed to do and I feel it, that's it. So kind of like wearing a mask. I just feel it. You know, I was okay with it for a while. I went along with it for a while. And then I was like, okay, you've had your fun. I've had it. I'm over it. I've had it. I played along for a time and I'm just not doing it anymore. Okay. So that's a whole other story, right? So I had them turn it off, but the gentleman says to me, well, you're paid up until October 6th. So, you know, we can send you the box to return the stuff, but we're not going to actually just deactivate the service or disconnect the service until the 6th of October. And I'm like, okay, well, guess what? Tomorrow's the 6th of October. And today, my hot water tank wouldn't turn on. And so I text my clients and said, guess what? Sorry for the inconvenience, but I'm now officially out of business. So I need to cancel all future appointments and I cried and I called my dad and called my brother and left him a message and why? Because I have it in my mind that things are supposed to happen a certain way, right? But back to that. Okay, so when I got the inspiration to call and deactivate the DirecTV, I was just journaling about it and that was like I'm going to say the 13th of September. That's when I started getting motivated to do stuff here. So that's when I started cleaning up and started purging stuff. And then it's, again, really funny that we are just now today, I was speaking to a woman on the phone. And I was willing to set up an appointment for her or whoever she was calling for to come see the house. And that was just today before the water heater wouldn't turn on. And so it's just, I don't believe in coincidence. So here we are, all these pieces, falling into place, but there was some panic that set in, right? Because I think in my mind, these things have to happen in this certain specific order. And when it didn't happen that way, my small self, I like sat at the kitchen table with my hands over my eyes, crying, sobbing, a little bit. But I noticed that it was my small self and my body was crying, but there was a big part of me that was still okay. I was still okay. I was still had trust for whatever is playing out here. And I should tell some other things about this. Okay, so I said the water tank's been fritzing off for about a week. A week and a half ago, I got a letter in the mail from a real estate agent that said, it's a seller's market. If you're interested in selling your house, yada yada yada. And I thought, well, maybe she saw the sign that I put a sign out front, and I did. I put a sign out front saying for sale and the price. I thought, well, maybe she saw the sign, or I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. So maybe she saw it on Facebook Marketplace, something. And I happen to know her mom. Her mom used to be a client of mine. So I was like, oh, well, she heard about it somehow, right? Of course I thought that. So today, when all these things were happening, and see right there, my small self and my mind just said going wrong instead of happening. See how we do that, right? You think these things are going wrong. It's not. It's incrementally pieces of the puzzle just falling into place. It's not that it's wrong or going wrong. It may be a little scary and a little whatever and a little out of order as far as I believe it's out of order, right? Okay. So, oddly enough, I had kept this letter from the real estate agent and I had not thrown it away. And I really thought that I was really against getting an agent and that kind of thing. But this happened today and I was like, okay. So I called the agent and talked to her on the phone. And I said, before we got off the phone, I said, oh, by the way, I got this letter in the mail. How did you see the sign I had out front? Um, did you see my house listed on Facebook Marketplace? Um, because I know your mom and she was a client of mine, did your mom see the listing on Facebook Marketplace and tip you off? Like how did I receive this letter? And she said, she laughed and she said, really? She said, all I do is I pick random addresses. I choose random addresses and mail those letters to random addresses. I said, just random. She said, yep, just completely random. And I just happen to know her mom, and I just happen to be, have a sign out front and just happen to be listing my house. And conveniently, shortly after I received that letter from her is when the hot water tank started fritzing out. So, I don't believe in coincidence. So there's all these things. And I had already canceled the DirecTV, even though they weren't going to turn it off until the 6th because I had already paid for the month. Go figure, right? So The reason that I'm saying this is because the reason I'm putting this video out is, for one thing, to document that these things are happening and the way that they're happening. Because, sorry, I just saw a something. Anyway, the way that these things are happening, depending on how this turns out, I might be able to come back and say, oh, guess what? This is how it went, right? But the other reason is because I'm being given so many signs and so many indications that this is how it has to be. This is how it's going. This is just how it's going to be. This is what is for my greatest good. Even though, and I said to my dad, I said, okay, here we go. One more step outside of my comfort zone, right? Is to mix up the order of how I think it needs to go. So, but I'm being given all these signs and still even questioning, and still I am questioning. Still I am falling into doubt. Still I am having to remind myself of all of the signs that I'm being given, because the labels and the beliefs and the ideas of the world are so influential. So influential. Spirit is showing me every way possible that I'm being cared for. I'm being cared for. I'm being guided. These things are happening in the way they need to happen. I'm being shown this so many ways, and still I'm doubting. And still, okay? So I'm putting that out there because we have to be aware that when we're dealing with ourselves and even with other people, right? We have to be compassionate. We have to be tolerant, empathetic for what we feel and how we're coping and dealing with everything that's coming. You know, trust. I wish it were easy. And in some ways it is, okay? In some ways it is. When I get a message, when the hot water heater wouldn't start, I knew what that meant. I knew because I'd been given indications, a handful of times leading up to today, and I knew what it meant. But even though I knew what it meant, even though I was aware that this was how it was happening, I still felt discomfort because it didn't fit my mental picture of what it was supposed to be, how it was supposed to be. And I just felt the need to speak on that today, and to have this documented, that these are the signs that are happening and this is how it's happening, and so we can kind of see how it plays out. Now, is the house going to sell in 2 weeks and I won't have to worry about moving without having sold the house first? Or am I going to have to move and trust the agent to sell the house without me even in the state? And find employment out there before the house sells? I don't know. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see which way it goes. I would rather, right? Because in my mind, this was how I had to sell the house first. This was how it had to happen. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out in real time, because, you know, I thought, at least I'd have at least a week or two yet, but not. And I've already notified the clients, and so here we are. So Mama's got to go to work doing something pretty soon. So there we go. In another state. So I hope this message finds you well. In peace and love, may you be blessed.